Hello and welcome to We Caribbean, a special program in which we discuss and analyze the issues affecting the region, giving a voice to those who are impacted. It's their issues, their concerns, their triumphs on We Caribbean. I'm your host, Doris Polo. Now, for some, it was the mother of all elections in the United States. The world watched with bated breath as a country of more than 331 million chose its commander-in-chief. Mainstream media projected a win for Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden and his far or right hand, born to a Jamaican dad and Indian mom, Kamala Harris. As of Saturday, Biden was expected to be declared the official winner of 290 electoral college votes when compared to Trump's 232 of 538 in total. Many hope that having someone with Caribbean heritage in the White House would benefit the region. Joining us to discuss the impact of this election is David Denny, the General Secretary of the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration. David, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks.
Now, there's a saying, when America sneezes, the Caribbean catches a cold. What do you think the region should expect from a change in U.S. presidents?
Well, our movement, what we did is that we advised the people of the Caribbean not to celebrate as yet this election in the United States of America. But we are very happy that the people of the United States of America have changed its president and they have an elected president other than our former President Trump. Now, we in the Caribbean would like the government of the United States of America to first recognize and respect our region as a zone of peace. We would also like the government of the United States of America to remove the political and economic embargo against Cuba and Venezuela. We would also like the United States of America new government to also recognize the government of Venezuela as a legitimate government. And we would like the new government in the United States of America to honor and to respect Caribbean people. Because you know the former president of the United States of America referred to African people, Haitian people, and Black people as whole people. And he have also been creating problems for a number of our Latin America and Caribbean brothers who have been living in the States for many years. So I think that this new government need to first honor its proposals and to recognize the governments and the people of our region within the Americas. I think that's the first thing that I would like to see happen with the new government that was elected in the United States of America during the month of November.
We'll definitely touch a bit more on that later on in the show. But, you know, David, it's interesting that in St. Lucia, for example, the U.S. has imposed Leahy law due to alleged extrajudicial killings by police officers, which has led to them withholding security-related assistance. What's the likelihood of this softening under a Biden government?
Well, I think that the United States of America tried to operate as though that they are the international police of the world. And I think that the United States of America should allow CARICOM to deal with these issues, and that if they have a position against St. Lucia in relation to these judicial killings, that they should first work through CARICOM, so that CARICOM as an intergovernmental agency within our region can have deeper dialogue with St. Lucia, so that we in the Caribbean can work towards solving our own problems better than the United States of America operating as an international police agency.
Now, there has been a lot of talk and calls by Caribbean leaders to have assistance during this time, this critical period amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, gain financial support from foreign countries. With the United States being the worst hit by the pandemic in the entire world, do you think that a Biden administration can approach Congress for, or even dare to do so, to offer such assistance to Caribbean countries?
Well, I think that it would be a good idea if the new government in the United States of America approaches its Congress and offer technical and financial support to our region, because the United States and large countries in Europe, they have benefited from the resources and from the Caribbean region, so they owe us a debt, and therefore the best way to pay this debt back to the Caribbean people would be to assist us with this very serious problem that will affect many of the Caribbean countries, because we depend heavily on tourism, and most of our tourists come from North America and Europe. So I think that it would be a very good idea, and I think that the Caribbean government should accept that kind of financial support from the government and people of the United States of America.
Now, the region, David, has been caught up in an intense, for want of a better word, U.S.-China rivalry during much of the Trump presidency. For example, U.S. Ambassador Donald Tapia warned Jamaica not to engage Chinese firms in its efforts to roll out 5G technology across the country, warning that there would be implications for the country's financial sector. And the Chinese embassy in Kingston rebuked the sentiment, and they were extremely upset. What sort of change, if any, can be expected in this regard, given Kamala Harris' Jamaican heritage?
Well, I think as I mentioned earlier, the United States of America need to respect our region. As Caribbean people, we have a right to deal with any country that we feel can assist our people. So if the Jamaican people want to deal with China, that's their right. I know that they have also made some threats to small developing nations for dealing with Cuba in relation to the COVID-19 situation. The Donald Trump administration just goes around threatening people and threatening governments for dealing with Cuba, for dealing with Venezuela, for dealing with China. But for me, I think that we have a right to determine, our direction. We have a right to determine who we want to deal with. And we have a right as Caribbean people to develop our industries based on our knowledge and based on our people's commitment to make changes that will benefit the people of our region.
Interesting, because the Caribbean countries that would have received the lion's share of support from the United States were the ones that would have sort of pandered to the country's foreign policy. So we had Jamaica, the Bahamas, St. Lucia even being among the largest recipients of funds from 2001 to 2019. David, on that note, we will take a short break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation on what is taking place as it relates to the United States elections, with Joe Biden being declared the president-elect by mainstream media. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are continuing our discussion with David Denny of the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration. Now, David, Cuba is facing 60 years of crippling U.S. sanctions. You mentioned it before, and the country was hopeful that at the end of the Trump era, it would receive some relief. and with Biden's approach, do we think, or do you think that it will somewhat mirror that of former President Barack Obama, who sort of eased measures without actually normalizing ties with the Caribbean country?
Well, I don't know what will happen, but what I think should happen is that the new government in the United States of America, the Biden government, I think that they should go back to the position that the former president developed, that Obama developed in relation to Cuba and the United States of America relationship. And I also feel that, that he should go even a step further than Obama, and that would be to remove the political and economic embargo against Cuba that is creating difficulties for the government and people of Cuba. And because Cuba is a very important Caribbean country, because Cuba have been extending its international solidarity to many of our Caribbean and African and poor nations throughout the world. In fact, Cuba also contributed to the development of small developing areas within the United States of America in terms of helping them with educational training, in terms of studies, in terms of dealing with some of the health issues, in terms of training medical doctors. So Cuba have been extending a lot of work in terms of helping the poor people of the world. And I think that a country like that should not receive that kind of brutal attack from the United States of America, so that if Biden want to be seen as a man and a president who respects the rights of all working class people across the world, I think his first stance should be to remove that economic embargo against Cuba and Venezuela.
One thing that's important to note, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel tweeted, "We believe in the possibility of a constructive bilateral relationship that respects differences." And, it's quite important because we have seen these leaders in the region speak openly about being willing to have conversations with the United States and with other countries that continue to maintain these sanctions that obviously form human rights violations when people can't have medicine, people can't have access to food. Now, one of the major policies Donald Trump implemented was the reduction of the United States refugee intake down to 18,000 from 30,000. And that in itself was a fraction of the 110,000 under Barack Obama when he demitted office in 2016. Now, other policies directly impacted migrants, many of whom come from the Caribbean. Should Caribbean migrants in the U.S. or those hoping to make the trek to the country breathe a sigh of relief? Because you mentioned earlier that you believe that the United States should maintain the sovereignty and respect for people's rights in the region. But what about Caribbean people living there?
Yeah, a number of Caribbean people have been going through very difficult problems when you had the Trump administration in power in the United States of America. So I know that Caribbean people will be looking forward for changes from this new government. This new government was elected not only because some people in the United States of America wanted change. This government was elected because of what happened to George Floyd in terms of the police killing in the United States of America, and also because of the COVID-19 situation in the United States of America that is affecting many Caribbean people who are living in the United States of America. So I think that Caribbean people feel more comfortable with the new government, and I think that the Caribbean people are looking forward for changes that will give them, a position where they will be able to fully participate in the decision-making process within the United States of America, and also they will be able to use the health facilities and medical facilities within the United States that will help them to fight this battle against the COVID-19 situation within the United States of America.
Just a reminder for our viewers, the video that we're showing right now is reflecting Caribbean people's participation in the Black Lives Matter protest that took place after the killing of George Floyd earlier this year. And, you know, we know that Caribbean people have been very instrumental in the civil rights movements in the United States. We have Stokely Carmichael from Trinidad and Tobago. We have Marcus Garvey from Jamaica and many, many, many other people. Now, President Trump has refused to concede defeat in this election, insisting that it was rigged. And a similar outcry was made by Guyana's former president, David Granger, and he, along with his family and a few of his officials, was sanctioned by Washington. Would you say there is hypocrisy in this position that the United States often takes with Caribbean and Latin American countries?
Yes, I think it is hypocrisy. And I also think that Trump is a madman. The people of the United States of America have already voted for a new president, and therefore he should respect what the people's decision in the United States of America. And I think that he should, allow the elected president to take over in January when when the time will be right and ready for him to take over the post as president of the United States of America, because it's the people of the United States of America that have elected a new president. So I think that he should remove himself from power and allow the people to be able to develop the United States of America in the kind of way that will be beneficial to everyone living in the States.
Trinidad and Tobago lost a deal with Venezuela. They were to jointly explore the Dragon gas oil field. Point blank, do you think these measures against Venezuela, the Bolivarian Republic, will be eased to allow nations to resume relations with the country?
Well, we have to struggle for this kind of, we have to struggle to make sure that the government of the United States of America respect our region. That's why I am not going to start to celebrate in a big way, because the Democrats have done some things that were very, very, very bad to our region in the past. But I still have some level of hope that we can bring about some level of changes in relation to Cuba and Venezuela with this new government in the United States of America. And I am hoping that common sense that the new president would use his common sense to make sure that he respect our region and that he allow Venezuela and Cuba and Nicaragua and now Bolivia to play a major role within intergovernmental agencies within our region, so that the people of our region can benefit. So that I don't believe that we should allow the government of the United States of America to put any pressure on any of the nations within our region that deals with Cuba or Venezuela or Nicaragua or Bolivia.
David, I know that your grassroots movement is doing a lot of work in Barbados. So before we go, tell us about some of the projects that you're working on in Barbados.
Well, we are a peace movement and a movement that deals with integration. And right now we are working on a major project in Barbados, because during the Black Lives Matter struggle, we held a number of marches in Barbados. And today we will be removing a statue that represents slavery, and a statue that is really an insult to every African man in the Americas and every indigenous person within the Americas. And this statue was there for over 200 years in Bridgetown, Barbados. So that out of that Black Lives Matter march, we were able to create some level of consciousness in Barbados that have now forced the government of Barbados to remove Lord Nelson from our national heroes career, and that's going to happen today. We are also working with working class people within the trade union movement in Barbados. We are working with peace organizations within the Caribbean that are fighting to demand that our area remain a zone of peace. We are also working with persons in Barbados who may not be Barbadian people, but we are creating the conditions so that they can integrate within our society. We continue our solidarity work with Cuba, Venezuela, and the Palestine people, and also with other countries and people who need our solidarity and support.
Most definitely. It's interesting you mentioned Palestine. So much is happening coming out of the region with Israel, sort of solidifying and moving forward with building more houses on occupied territory. But unfortunately, we are out of time. David, thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you, Ella, also for giving me the opportunity.
Most definitely. Now, the Caribbean, like the rest of the world, is keenly looking at the U.S. elections and what that democratic process will mean for the region. Here at We Caribbean, we'll continue to discuss the region's concerns. On that note, we've come to the end of this week's episode of We Caribbean. I am Doris Polo. To keep up with news and more, go to our website, telesurenglish.net, or join us on social media. See you next week.